This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
To avoid an unpleasant experience, you can create protocols. These are rules that you create and live by, decisions you make in advance. The Old Money Book details how anyone from any background can adopt the values, priorities, and habitats of America's upper class in order to live a richer life. This entertaining and informative work reveals for the first time the core values that shape the discreet but truly affluent old money way of life. Author Byron Tully then details how old money does it, offering time-tested advice on everything from clothes and cars to finances and furnishings. Whether you're just starting out or starting over, the Old Money Book shows you how you really can live better while spending less. Valeria Teles interviews Byron Tully, the author of Old Money, New Woman, How to Manage Your Money and Your Life, Secrets to America's Upper Class. Byron Tully is the author of The Old Money Book, How to Live Better While Spending Less, Secrets of America's Upper Class, as well as Old Money, New Woman, How to Manage Your Money and Your Life, and The Old Money Guide to Marriage. He is the curator of the Old Money Book blog, which has been visited by more than 1 million readers since 2014. He lives with his wife in Paris and continues to write. Meet Byron at theoldmoneybook.com. Here is the interview with Byron Tully.
In your own words, who is Byron Tully?
Byron Tully is an author, and he writes primarily about the old money culture in the United States and around the world, and basically trying to get a message out about old money values and how old money people live and how anyone can adopt that lifestyle regardless of what background they're from.
What inspired you, Byron, to write about old money culture?
It really happened a few years ago after the 2007-2008 financial crisis. My wife and I were living in Los Angeles, and when the financial crisis hit, we watched friends of ours and acquaintances and colleagues who were apparently, by all visible outward signs, very affluent and doing very well. They had the car, they had the McMansion, they had the jewelry, they had the clothes. But when the financial crisis hit, in about 3 to 6 months, and even 2 or 3 years later, before things really started to come back with the economy, we saw a lot of them really suffer because they were, in actuality, living paycheck to paycheck. And they had the lifestyle, but they didn't have the spending habits that some of our friends in Boston had, who were from more established families, lived a more discreet, kind of under the radar lifestyle. And our friends in Boston, their lifestyle didn't change because they drove secondhand cars, they dressed conservatively and very modestly. They didn't spend more than they earned. They didn't have themselves in an unsustainable lifestyle where every penny was going to a mortgage or going to a car payment or going to a credit card payment. And we saw that contrast. And, I sat there, in my living room a lot of times, and I had friends who were, had the Rolex, they had the Audi, they had the nice apartment. They were taking 2 and 3 and 4 vacations every year. And they're sitting there in the living room going, man, I don't know what I'm going to do next month. And so after a lot of soul searching, I said, you know what? I've just got to write about this. I've got to. I'd never written a book before, and I said, I've got to write about this. I've got to articulate what values and priorities and habits my friends in Boston and some friends over here in Europe had that protected them and gave them a higher quality of life, not just a standard of living, but a higher quality of life and more security, financial and, but obviously emotional security, to be able to kind of go with the flow and not be, they lived a different life. And so I said, okay, I've got to write about this. I've got to share this with people because most of it is not centered on how much money you have. Yes, old money requires money. If you're going to be old money, you have to have money. But most of it is the priorities that you have, the values that you have, and the spending habits that you have. And that's what motivated me to say, okay, I've got to write about this. And when I did, luckily, people really responded to it. And it's been, now I've written 3 or 4 books about different aspects of old money. I wrote about marriage, about how people can develop relationships and use certain traditions and certain strategies that old money families and individuals use in order to choose the right person to spend their life with. It's a huge decision. And then, a few years ago, a friend of mine in California said, you've got to write a book specifically for women. It's too important. And about that time was about the time that the Me Too movement started. And I said, okay, we've really got to speak up here. And that's what's motivated writing about. That's what initiated writing about old money, and things have kind of rolled forward from there.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. That is so true that we women don't tend to talk about money often, for some reason.
Yeah, when the whole the era that my parents grew up in was. People ask me, "Oh, are you a feminist?" And it's like I grew up with my mother working. I grew up with a lot of strong women, all of them working, all of them involved in the decision-making processes of our family, all of them pursuing what they wanted to pursue. And so the idea that, oh, it was feminism, no, it's really not. There have always been strong women out there. And to be able to go, okay, look, this is what's important, and when I reached out to female friends of mine to start writing Old Money, New Woman, they said, you've got to tell them about this. You've got to tell them about that. You've got to tell them about how to date guys and how to look at guys and the illusions they can't have about dating and marriage and their money and investments and their careers. And so I didn't so much write it as curate all of these experiences and all of this wisdom from all of my female friends and people I didn't even know. People writing me emails saying, hey, I'm a friend of Susan's. Can you include this in the book? And just incredibly valuable information that women need to know, because women are outliving their husbands. They're managing more of their money. They're making they're making 90% of the buying decisions for their household, and there's a huge amount of power, regardless of whether a woman is single or married or has children or whatever her situation is. There's a huge amount of power there. And to be able to know how to address that and use that so that you don't get victimized by companies trying to sell you things. You don't get victimized by fashion trying to sell you something every 6 months, a new dress every 6 months. you really learn how to manage this stuff.
Yeah.
That was really the message in this book.
Yeah, thank you, Byron. And I appreciate it very much. So my next warm-up question to you is about the meaning of money. What does it mean to you to have money?
The money is something that and this is something that people who've had old money, or they've had money over 2 or 3 or 4 generations, they really learn the most important thing about money is when you have money, you have options. People talk about financial independence like it's this hard, like $1 million, or it's this or it's that. Financial independence is a scale, and it starts off, and it's just money. It's like with minimal financial independence. If you have minimal financial independence, that means you have to work every week, because if you don't work next week, if you lose your job next week, you're in big trouble. Okay, because you only have money for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and paying the rent and next month, if you lose your job, is a big problem. Okay, that's minimal financial independence. That's a minimal amount of money, a minimal amount of options that you have. And then as you move up the scale and go, okay, I've got money in savings for the next 6 months or for the next year. Okay, if I lose my job, I'm okay for a minute. Okay, I've got money for the next 10 years. I've stacked up my investments and my savings and my cash flow, and I've limited my expenses. And I've got money for the next 10 years or the next 20 years without dipping into my principal or without worrying about anything. Then you have options. It's like, well, what do I really want to do with my life? I don't have to work at this office job if I don't want to. So money, people say, oh, money's power and money's this and money's luxury and all this. No, it's options. Because people may, there are a lot of wealthy people, and they live on a farm, or they're a park ranger, or they're a dog breeder or a horse breeder, or whatever, or they work with underprivileged kids because that's what they're passionate about. It gives you the option to live your fullest life, not to buy stuff. It gives you an opportunity and an option, not a credit card limit, not a spending limit, not a conspicuous consumption, license to be a jerk.
True.
So and so you see when people get money, they win the lottery, or they're a first round draft pick for a sports team, and all of a sudden they have a big windfall of cash, or they inherit money. And what you see is here's your choice. You have an option to embrace an opportunity, or you have just the option to go spend money, waste it, and blow an opportunity, and waste an opportunity. And so that's what money means to me, and that's the culture of old money tends to take. Okay, let's take advantage of this, live wisely, and use this as an opportunity. So my grandchildren, okay, I've got plenty of money. Okay, now my grandchildren and my children have their education paid for. That's an opportunity to enrich lives. I can give to charity, So there's these opportunities open up when you have access to money.
Yeah, that really sounds to me like someone who is applying wisdom. Doesn't matter, in every area of their lives.
Exactly.
So my next question, the warm-up question, is about success. How do you define success these days?
I would define success as living as fully as possible in the different areas of your life. People can obviously be very successful financially, and their personal life is terrible. Their health is terrible. Their spiritual life is non-existent. There's a spectrum of personal aspect of things, the spiritual aspect of things, the physical aspects of things. What kind of relationships do you have? What kind of legacy are you going to leave in your community? How do people speak about you, people who you can't do anything to, and you can't do anything for them, you can't do anything to them. How do they speak about you? That 360-degree view is what I see. Okay, success. And are your goals constructive? Are you going to try and make $1 billion but destroy the planet in the process by polluting? There are all these different facets to it. It's a Rubik's Cube that I think most of us spend our life, turning around and going, oh, I got to get the green over here, I got to get the red over here. Oh, yeah, I'm not really good on my spiritual side. I need to work on that. And you kind of keep turning this Rubik's Cube around. But that in itself, that process of being aware and then moving to correct something or enhance something or get better at something, or have less of a temper, and not be as fearful, whatever it is that you have this awareness about, working toward that. And there was one guy I read years ago, and he said, hey, why don't you join us in the true nobility? And the person he was talking to said, well, what's the true nobility? And he said, to be a better person tomorrow than you are today. He said, that's what we're working on. Join us. And that, I think, is the definition of success, is these constructive goals, the awareness that you're not there yet, and the awareness that it's not all about you. It's kind of what you leave behind, and how far you come. If you're born wealthy and you die wealthy, but you haven't done anything, well, you haven't really been successful, even if you die with a lot of money. But if you start from somewhere and go a long way, how far did you go? Are you going to look back and go, yeah, I didn't really do everything I could? And that's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
I would imagine. I'm not dead yet. But,
having regrets, right?
Yeah, having regrets. Yeah. It's like, okay, minimize the regrets, maximize the experiences, leave a positive impact, and spend 51% of your time in joy. You talk about fit for joy. Make yourself fit for joy. You're like, okay, get it over the halfway mark, and spend 51% of your time joyfully through work and service and thinking about other people. I think that really comes down to, that kind of boils down to like, okay, yeah, I think most people would say, yeah, that's a pretty good definition of success.
So my last warm-up question is about the purpose of life. What do you think the purpose of the human experience is, Byron?
I think the purpose in life is to come in and play. Voltaire said life is a game of cards, and you get dealt a certain hand. And how well are you going to play that hand? Maybe you get dealt 4 aces. A few people do. But most people get dealt a mixed hand of cards. Their family situation is not so good. Their personal situation, is not so good. Their health may be a challenge. Maybe they're coming from a difficult environment or a bad neighborhood. But the purpose in life is to see where you can go from there and see how close to being godlike can you be. There's a friend of mine from India who's a very successful businessman, and I was lucky enough, I met him a few years ago, and he recently passed away. But he said the difference between Christian religion and Hinduism is Hindus think that they think that God is inside of us. And our job is to let him out and be a little piece of God on earth. And I think that when talking about a purpose, it's like, okay, be a little piece of God on earth. That again, spread that joy, spread that love. But if it's owning a business and providing people paychecks, or teaching kids at school and being that one teacher that, every kid that's now an adult has one or two or maybe three teachers that they remember. And if your purpose in life is to teach, be one of those teachers that kids come back to at the end of their life and hunt you down and say, Miss Koopman, you were the best. I got so much out of your class. You made me feel like $1 million when I was having trouble at home. To be that little piece of God on earth, I think across the board, if everybody just took that motto and tattooed it on their forearm,
right.
I think that would
idea.
be, I think that would be the purpose in life.
So you wrote the book, among others, Old Money, New Woman, How to Manage Your Money in Your Life, Secrets of Americans' Upper Class. I have a general question for you. How did you become a writer, Byron, in general?
My mother says that it's in our DNA. My grandfather was a newspaper publisher, and a lot of my uncles were journalists and editors and publishers. So it kind of runs in our family, and it's just something I've always done and I've always been good at. So I can't really say, there was a moment, I really, early on in my life, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was sitting with my dad and, I was saying, I might open a chain of liquor stores. I might do this. I might do all the stuff in business or, other things. And he said, I always thought you'd do something with your writing. And it was like, oh yeah, that's kind of the obvious, easy thing that I love to do. And it kind of went from there. Once that little light went on, I started finding my way through magazine articles and a few newspaper articles and going, okay, I'm not really a journalist, even though that's what my grandfather and uncles were. I'm not really into newspapers as much as I am into writing. I was writing screenplays in Los Angeles and making a little bit of a living there. And then when I wrote the book, I was like, yes, I really feel strongly about this, but it's always been a part of me. So that's, it wasn't a big decision. It was more just kind of following in my ancestors' footsteps.
So when it comes to living a good life, let's say, or a life that is in alignment with well-being, you suggest that we create protocols for different aspects of our lives, as you mentioned earlier, bringing those areas together, spiritual, personal, professional, and financial. Before I ask you to go through these areas and talk to me about them, why did you choose the word protocol in rules, secrets, guidelines?
I thought about the different possible meanings of the word. When we talk about when governments or, you're the United Nations or they're negotiating treaties, they'll talk about the Kyoto protocols or they'll talk about different protocols. And in that essence, a protocol is a general document that's an original document that's going to inform subsequent documents. So, if they have a protocol, that's one possible meaning or one possible context for the word protocol. So the second possible protocol is you go into the doctor and you say, hey, I've got this infection and, my foot's not looking really good. And the doctor says, okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to treat this with some antibiotics, and then we're going to clean it. And, we're going to need to get this stuff out of here. So I'm going to open up a little bit and I'm going to stitch it back together. But your protocol going forward is you're going to have to, clean this twice a day. You're going to have to keep your foot up. And it's a protocol in the sense of this is what you need to do. So here's a document that's going to inform all subsequent documents. And it's going to inform the direction and the scope and the detail of where we'll go. That's one protocol. And the second protocol is this is what you're going to do on a daily basis. So in those two definitions, which you'll see. And if you look in the dictionary, there's, okay, protocol. Here's what it could be. Here's what it could be. Here's what it could be. In those two, I thought that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an original document with, let's say, like the Ten Commandments in the Bible. Here's an original document that informs basically every law that we live under in the United States or in Europe. Don't steal, don't kill people. all of our subsequent legislation pretty much revolves around this original document. And so when people create protocols for themselves, they're creating an original document that's going to inform subsequent behavior, really. And then they're also giving themselves a daily regimen, which a doctor would do if he said, okay, this is a protocol. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do chemotherapy, radiation. You're going to get on a better diet, depending on whatever illness they're trying to address. But that's the reason behind it.
Yeah, it sounds to me like a commitment to improvement and growth, right? It's a serious commitment.
They're commitments, and it's also boundaries. You're committing to, you're committing to this, to this code of behavior, if you want to call it that, and you're also setting up boundaries for yourself. Right. So that's exactly it's commitment.
So talk to me, Byron, about these different aspects of protocols: spiritual, personal, professional, and financial, and how do we learn to establish them?
Okay. The first thing I think that's important to do is for people think, when I've talked with people privately about this, they think they have to start from scratch, and you don't have to start from scratch. You probably, people probably already have protocols that they're living by and they don't even realize it. So that's the place to start. It's like, okay, are you going to drink and drive? No, I'm not going to do that. Okay, that's a protocol. Okay, so you're not going to drink and drive. Just write that one down. There's probably, people can live their life with 10 protocols, 5 or 10 big protocols. But let's say, okay, not going to drink and drive. All right, are you going to ride in a car with somebody who's been drinking? I'm not going to do that either. I'll call Lyft. I'll call Uber. Okay, so there's a protocol. So these are personal things. Okay, let's go to spiritual. So what are you doing spiritually? Well, I'm going to church, or I'm meditating, or I'm reading up on a new religion that I'm interested in. I'm trying to be a better person every day. Okay, so what's involved with that? Okay, you want to go to church every day. You want to meditate every day. You want to read a book about spirituality and kind of get more in touch. Okay, so just write down 2 or 3 things into that category that you want to do, and when you're going to do them. And this is the more challenging aspect, is when you move into, am I going to live my spiritual practice every day? Am I going to live it at work? And so you go through the personal part of it. You go through the professional part of it. Okay, I'm going to be the guy that finishes everything on time, under budget, dot every I, cross every T. That's going to be me. So how do you frame that for your own personal situation? Financially, you go to your spending habits and go, okay, I'm earning money, but I don't really have a savings plan. Okay, I'm going to save 10% of my gross paycheck every week and just stick that into savings, do an automatic transfer, and that goes into savings. And I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to just let it grow, and then I'll figure out what I'll do with it later. Or I want to, own my own business. So what do I need to do? You set up these commitments, but you set up these boundaries, which is, I'm not going to have credit card debt. I'm always going to spend. I'm always going to earn more than I spend. So that becomes a protocol that serves you well, because if you always earn more than you spend, you're going to be in pretty good financial shape over a certain amount of time. It's inevitable. It's math. It's, it's not, there's no magic to it. And so you take these different aspects of your life and you write out a protocol. And it's, I always learn more than I spend. I'm always, learning about my profession. Attorneys will have what they call they have to take so many hours of classes every year in order to maintain their law license. And it's this minimum. And so they're constantly learning. And you just say, you know what, in my profession, I need to constantly be learning more. I need to know what the latest trends are. I need to know, I need to go to these conferences or be online and participate in these conferences and see who the industry leaders in my particular profession are. I need to meet the guys and gals that are in my business, in my area, and have a cup of coffee with them, even if it's out on the sidewalk, 6 feet apart with masks on. You have to meet people and know what's going on. So you make these different, you set up these different protocols for yourself in these different areas, and you stick with it. You make it something definitive, and you stick with it. And that's really the holistic way to approach it. Is the spiritual, the personal, the professional. Okay, hey, you know what? I'm married. I'm not going to cheat on my wife. I'm not going to cheat on my husband. That's one of my protocols. I'm not going to hide things from them. There's protocol, and you set it up in advance. You set it up in advance so that you don't get ambushed by a situation. You don't have peer pressure playing into a situation. Oh, come on, But I was when I was in high school, I was at a party and there was drug use. I didn't know what I was walking into, and there was a lot of stuff going on that I didn't participate in, and so I just went on the back porch of this house, and I just kind of hung out. Me and a couple other guys, and these guys came up to me and said, "Hey, we got this, we got that. You should try this. You should try that." And I said, "No, that's not really my thing." And they kept on and they kept bugging me about it until this big football player who was a friend of mine, he was, I'm 6'4". This guy was huge. He's like a refrigerator with a head on top of it. He was huge. And he came up behind him and he said, "Hey, cut it out. He doesn't do that. That's not the way he rolls. So just cut it out." And so they left me alone. But the protocol that I'd set up, everybody knew. It was like, Byron doesn't do drugs. So why even go there? And so these protocols are going to take care of so many tough decisions, so many problems, because your friends are going to know. They're going. You can sit down, have a girls' weekend and go, "Hey, let's make up some protocols." And everybody go, "What's that?" It's like, okay, so these are the rules we're going to follow. We're not going to sleep with guys on the first date. We're not going to get in credit card debt. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. We're not going to be in abusive relationships. We're going to be there for each other. Set up these protocols, and everybody's going to know how you are then. And it's like they're going to run interference for you. The word's going to get out. You say that this has been going on at work, and that's just not the way she is. You're going to get a reputation, and that's going to precede you, and it's going to make life so much easier. Because really the thing when I was in high school with the party was the least of it. It made life so much easier because people will go, "Yeah, I'm not even going to approach them about this. I'm not going to approach them about unethical or illegal behavior or doing something stupid," because everybody knows that's not the way she is. So that's really, that's one of the big advantages of establishing these protocols is, yes, it helps you personally, but it helps you socially. It helps you professionally, because the word gets out that this is the way you are, and there's no reason to even bring a subject up that's not healthy or constructive.
So protocols, the way you speak of, they are really connected to values and beliefs, aren't they, Byron?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. These are, I talk in the original Old Money book, I talk about core values.
Right.
Core values of family, core values of education, core values of health, privacy, financial independence, the work ethic. These are core values that help people, they help people create and preserve wealth, but they also create a quality of life, a certain quality of life that is really desirable. That's really what everybody's looking for, and a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose. And these protocols act as the framing for those values. They it's like you're framing a house. It's like, okay, we're going to frame this house. This is where this corner ends. This is where this corner ends. This is how tall it is. This is the way it looks. This is the shape of it. And these protocols, here's a good example of what a protocol does for people. Is like you're talking about being fit for joy, and this is like the best. This is like the best slogan ever, because imagine that you're a child and you're on a playground, and you've got this playground where you can run and jump and play and be as joyful as you can possibly be because it's your playground. Okay. But over here, just on the sidewalk by that playground, is a guy dealing drugs. And over here is a busy freeway with a bunch of cars going by really fast. And over here is a cliff that drops 50 feet down, and it's dangerous. And you want to walk in, you want to play on this playground in complete joy, unrestrained joy. So you say, you know what? I'm going to establish a protocol that I'm not going near these dangerous things. I'm not going to drink and drive. I'm not going to spend more than I make. I'm not going to do drugs. I'm going to, it's not simply just about not doing things, but I'm going to take care of my health. I'm going to prioritize my relationships. You set up all these protocols. It's like a wrought iron fence around this playground. And once you've established that, you get to run and jump and laugh and scream and play and be as joyful of a child as you can be, because you don't have to worry about what's on the other side of that fence, because none of your toys are going over there, and if they go over there, you're not following them.
Yeah,
you're keeping it. You know exactly what your boundaries are. So that's really what protocols do for you.
I like the way you use the word boundaries, because you include that as part of these protocols. Yeah, that's a tough one sometimes to say no to certain things or people.
Yeah, and the key with the protocol is that it's impersonal. And that's a real key point, because I don't like saying no to people. I don't like doing that. I'm not comfortable with confrontation or anything. But if you present the protocol to someone else and say, that's just not something that I do, or that's really it's impersonal. It comes across as a policy and not something directed at a person or at them. And then you can say, that's just not something that I do. And basically the positive way to present it is, I always do this, and I don't really make any exceptions to that rule. I always get a ride home I always go to someplace I don't know with girlfriends of mine or someone that I know. I don't really go, places that I've never been before with people I don't know. And it's just a policy of mine. I don't make exceptions. Yeah. And that's the easier way to address it.
Yeah. Would you say that not spending more than we make is one of the biggest advice you can give anyone when it comes to money?
Yes. you can't spend more than you earn. You have to earn more than you spend, because if you create an unsustainable lifestyle, that it's going to add so much stress. It bleeds out into so many areas. The not spending. Excuse me. To say I always earn more than I spend. Okay, that puts so many issues into perspective, because you can look and go, oh, I love those shoes, but they're Louboutins, and that's they're $1,200, and that's what I make in a week. Okay, I always earn more than I spend. Okay, if I can pay cash for them and it's not going to affect my financial security, great. But to put it on a credit card and pay 23% interest, no. I think that part of that protocol is key, and then the other protocol that's really key is that you say to yourself, I do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether I like it or not. And that when you look at it, when we go to school, we go to elementary school and junior high and high school and college, we learn things. We learn math, we learn history, we learn grammar and spelling, we learn chemistry, we learn English literature, whatever it is we learn, technical curriculum. But what we really learn how to do is to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether we like it or not. Like, you know what? I'd really like to party on Friday night, but I got an exam on Monday, so I have to study. And that ability, it means you can delay gratification and save up to start your own business. It means you can save up to buy a house. It means you can take care of your parents when they're aging, rather than going, just ship them off to, Uncle Bill or whatever. I do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether I like it or not. And that commitment, that protocol bleeds out into every aspect of life, whether it's writing a book, meeting a deadline, whatever it is, getting up and exercising, at 5 o'clock in the morning when it's cold. It's everything. And I think those two protocols are really the key ones. Is I always earn more than I spend, and I do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether I like it or not. That's pretty close to the whole ball of wax.
What a great suggestion. Yeah, I love that. The idea of commitment. Yeah, that goes back to that, holding on to your beliefs, doing what you need to do, right? Whether you are complaining about it or not, you just get it done. Or the body's complaining
about it.
Right.
Yeah, most things in the world get done by people who are tired, who don't feel good, and they complain about it, but they still do it.
Yes, yes, so true. So I have 2 more questions for you, the ending questions. If you knew you would die soon, meaning losing the body, would you make any change in your life or do anything in a different way?
I would probably finish a novel I've been working on.
Yeah.
I probably want to wrap that up. It's not finished yet. But I other than that, I really wouldn't, because I'm really living that way a large percentage of the time right now. Because one of the things about aging is you start to get perspective on things. And a friend of mine's mother died last year, and I flew home. I flew home for the wedding. I'm sorry, for the funeral. I flew home for the funeral, and when I saw my friend, I've known him for 50 years, and I said, I love you, man. I know it's a tough time. And he said, I love you, bro. And he said, you know what? And he lives in Texas, and I live here in Paris. And he said, every time we talk to each other, every time I talk to you on the phone, I'm going to tell you I love you, because life goes by so fast. He said, I talked to my mom on Sunday. She died on Wednesday. And so there have been all these difficult experiences I've had that, kind of keep that carpe diem mindset right in the forefront. So that I'm not really not doing things that I would do if I knew I was going to die in 3 months or 6 months. I'm kind of like, yeah, this is what I want to do today. I'm fine if I die tomorrow. And that's really, I'm lucky enough to be able to live that way right now.
Yeah, that's a great answer to that question. That means you have been living this regretless life, really.
Well, pretty much.
Pretty much, very close to it.
I wouldn't say 100%.
Yeah. And if you are aware of the remaining percentage, that's even better. So you can do something about it. And the last question is, what are 3 things about life you know for sure as of this moment?
I know very confidently, very certainly that there's so few things that you can go back and fix. Once they're in the past tense, they're past. There's so few things you can fix. That's the first thing. The second thing would be that I don't think that people say, oh, you can do anything in life. I think you can do what you were put on this planet to do. And within that niche, potential is unlimited. If you want to be a teacher and you want to touch kids, I don't think there's any limit to how much impact you can have on those kids. Or if you want to be a doctor, or if you want to be a research scientist and come up with a cure for whatever, But if you're 5 feet tall and you're short for your weight, and you say, I'm going to be a star in the NBA, be a pro basketball player, I don't think that that's a plan. But that, and I guess the third thing would be that I'm not really sure about that much. There are very few things I'm really certain about. I leave a lot of slack, a lot of play, because every time I say, that is always the way it is, that's never the way it is, then, you're just setting yourself up to have a new painful experience. So I guess those would be the 3 things.
Thank you so much, Byron, for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you very much. I really, I'm really excited about, the good that you're doing and the positive message that you're sharing with people. And I wish you continued success, in doing it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate what you do too, and your fun presence. I call it spiritually fun, because everything is spiritual to me. Thank you. Where can we find more information about you, your books, products, services, and future projects?
If you go to, if you type in the Old Money Book, you'll find an Amazon product listing, and the same thing for Old Money, New Woman. You'll find the Amazon product listing where you can pick up the books. And if you simply want to read more about old money and different subjects of different things that I talk about on the blog, if you go to www.theoldmoneybook.com, the blog has been visited by, I think, about 1.2 million people over the past 6 years. So we've had a lot of fun. It's been very popular, and it's just been a really great forum for people to talk about old money and other things. So those are the 2 places, Amazon and theoldmoneybook.com.
Wonderful. And they will be listed on your podcast profile too, these links.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Byron. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Byron Tully and his work, please visit theoldmoneybook.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.